should adults be watching out for to think this is someone who really might stop attending altogether or who's starting to get overwhelmed by school?
Yeah.
It's a really hard question, but are there any early signs?
Good question, Orla.
Give it a try. I think it's important to say that we all experience moments of anxiety, don't we? And so it's kind of how maybe frequent that's happening.
Okay, so maybe they're saying it every day, every morning.
Yeah, it's not kind of that, after holiday Monday where we're thinking, oh, I've got to go back,
And you feel like that yourself as well.
Thinking, yeah, me too. That's it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sunday nights are my favourite.
Yes.
You love Monday mornings, don't you?
Someone's got to.
Hop and skip into it, pal, every time.
So I think those things definitely, like the frequency of it, but also I suppose their response. So, when we do feel anxious, we might be able to have a conversation with someone and feel that a little bit better. But you'll notice that when it is really significant, that's not going to shift. That's not enough. That's not going to change. And then maybe that offer of support, and if they feel they can manage that or not, and so I think it's a big scale.
I've got another question then based on that. So if I was a parent who has got a child who is saying, I don't want to go, I'm scared, I don't like it there, they're mean to me, I don't want to have to put my hand up in class, etc. As a parent, how do you respond to that? So the reason I'm asking that as well is because I know that if my child was saying that to me, I would feel anxious as a parent, right? I think I would automatically feel, I don't know, what do I do about this? And I also know, as the psychologist, that anxiety would then feed into my child's anxiety, and I could potentially make it worse. So as a parent, Charlotte, how do you manage your own anxiety to support your child's anxiety so as not to increase their anxiety and create that cycle?
Yes. Great question. I would say I think it is hard because as a parent myself, I think you, depending on the moment, can respond differently. So like you say, you can have that anxiety, can't you? Or you can shut them down if you're worrying about the day, or, they can sometimes be, don't be silly, it's going to be fine, come on. And they don't feel heard. So I think ultimately trying to listen and make them feel heard is number one. Just, thank you for telling me that you feel like this. Do you know why? Really trying to hard, because as mums we're all busy rushing around.
It's that morning thing as well, isn't it? When you're going to a meeting, you're trying to get out the door. Like for me, I've got a toddler like hanging to my leg, also probably not wanting to do something I've asked him to do. Like it's so much easier than just be like, oh, don't be silly, like you'll be fine, just crack on,
Yeah, but I think trying as much as we can,
press pause,
to just say, make it known that they've got your attention and you're hearing this, and that's important to you because it matters to them.
It's real for them.
Yeah.
So even from your point of view, if it's completely irrational and they're worried about something that will be okay, just recognizing that in that moment they are scared, or they are worried and their feelings are real. I think sometimes that is the barrier that gets you to the next bit of the conversation, isn't it?
I think so, definitely. And also I think it's that offer to do something else about it, so they might actually just want to feel heard and say, I'm feeling like this, and that might be enough. But if not, and often it's not, then it's thinking about, okay, what can I do? Do you want me to email school to make them aware? Do you want, so that they feel that they're not then, as soon as they get to school, alone? If they're struggling to go to school, then I would definitely advise them trying as early as possible to discuss that with someone at school, because again, you're not able to be at school with them. And so it's creating that connection. It's creating maybe a safe space. Is it a friend? Is it a particular time of the day that is difficult? It's trying as much as possible to work out what it is that's causing that, and then being able to put something in place. A lot of schools now are really focused on pastoral care. We've come a long way over the years. And so I think actually there is staff that want to be able to support and help the young person to feel better. Does that answer?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. It's just really helpful to think about, isn't it? Because I think especially early on, because there's never, well, maybe in some cases, but I guess it's quite rare that a child would literally be, yeah, I'm going, no, I'm not. I think it's that graduated build up, isn't it? And I think those very early on conversations as a parent, probably if you can kind of get that bit right, you might then prevent, I guess, a building picture of anxiety. Yeah. So it's about not ignoring it, isn't it? I think. And I'm going to put it out there as well. So for our generation, my generation, and certainly older than me, this was, well, you just go to school. You put up and you shut up and you go to school. And that's what happened. Like there was no compassion. There was nobody it just wasn't a choice. And most people did go to school. I think school has changed a lot. I think it's a lot more difficult now, I have to say that. And the world for young people has changed, as we've discussed in previous episodes. But I think that's why we have to respond differently to how probably we were responded to as well as kids.
Those stats that you shared at the start, Maddi, COVID has played a big factor in school attendance, because there was just not on anybody's radar was there any option of not going to school. Yeah, and all of a sudden, in living memory, there was a time when you didn't have to go. And some children had a really nice time at home during COVID. They had a lot of pressures taken off them. So not all children did. Some, it wasn't a good experience for everyone. But I think what I wanted to know was, in your experience, when you've seen really good practice, so when you've seen schools and parents and carers doing a fantastic job, what does that look like? Yeah. And what are they doing? What difference are they making?
Yeah. I think what that looks like is definitely that the school are also, like we've just spoken about, the parent trying to listen, school are also listening and not just shutting down kind of those conversations, really being open to that young person's voice in this, because that's their experience. Whether school think the canteen's busy or not, that's the young person's voice. The way that I've seen really good practice is that if the school can identify a member of staff that young person feels comfortable around, to be able to really build that relationship, work out what the problems are, maybe put in circle of friends. So, friends that are maybe aware that student X finds this challenge. And so could you maybe meet them before they go to the lunch hall or go to a club, and do different things kind of to really try and support those areas that are problematic. I think taking that a little bit further, home visits, schools do a lot of home visits now. Sometimes they call them safe and well checks, and still really trying to keep that connection when a young person is struggling to make it to the building. Like, you know what, we're going to come and see you then. And trying to make that positive and supportive. Sometimes, we should be mindful that can feel quite overwhelming for a young person to have a member of staff turn up at their front door. But if it's done in the right way, that it's done in care, and that they maybe know that they're coming to see them and it is because they're worried about them, that can be really good practice, so that the child believes, oh, okay, they really care about me, and
there's that genuine connection.
Definitely. And this is all a challenge, coming from school background. I am very measured in kind of the expectations of schools. It's so difficult trying to...
So busy.
Exactly.
So many children need your help.
Exactly. So I love the fact that that's where kind of the team that I'm working for now are able sometimes to bridge that gap and support the school. We've seen the young person that needs that support, but also addressing mental health within the home, maybe to them kind of build that confidence for their return to school. But also when you were talking there, I was just thinking about the fact that young people during COVID experienced that they could have a world just online. And so actually it's that thing, isn't it, of, well, why do I need to go to school? Because actually the benefits of having friends, being sociable, doing all of those things, they've seen that can be done online. We never had that, did we, as, our experience. So yeah, I think a lot of those kind of practical things that school try to do can make a difference. Sometimes it gets to the point of needing to reduce a timetable for a young person, and often that can only be for a period of time because it's difficult, there's guidance and so on that schools need to adhere to. But it might be that it's that gradual return. We call it graded exposure, don't we? And kind of, trying to think about gradually doing something rather than it's all or nothing.
It's that age-old thing about face your fears, isn't it? But do it gradually.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said about the digital world, because I've seen some really good practice in schools where they're leaning into that. So they're not afraid of that. So you were talking about the AV1 robots earlier.
I was going to say we need to talk about what that is.
Yeah, explain that. But it's a really good example, isn't it? Where they're saying, no, children do have a digital life now. So let's blend it into what school means.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to say a bit about them.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm sure other robots are available.
I'm not sure if they are.
AV2, AV3.
Who knows? Watch this space. So, yeah, I think I definitely did the same thing when someone mentioned to me an AV1 robot a while ago now. And so these are small robots, quite literally, that can be placed within the classroom at school. Has to be, all arranged with the local authority. It's not just, can't buy them down the shop, unfortunately, but they would be basically kind of like a service. The school would make a referral, and then once the robot is kind of deemed an appropriate intervention for a young person, the idea is that this robot would bridge the gap for the young person that's struggling to leave home and for them still to access school.
So what does it look like if you're a child and a parent and, someone from your team says, right, we're getting you one of these robots? What actually happens?
So what actually happens is that you would, you'd have an initial conversation meeting about it where you'd explain that the place that provide these small robots can basically assign one to you as your...
The robots in school, so child's at home.
So no, schools literally would pay to rent them. It's like a service. But yeah, then it becomes in school. Then you have often a designated member of staff or friend that would take it to that child. They effectively, sounds a bit weird, but replace the child in the physical way in school. So say their timetable for the day was maths, English, science, whatever. The robot will sit through those lessons. And the young person that's at home, who's connected by their laptop device, can see into the lessons.
They can see what the robot sees.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah. They're literally, the eyes are, in the classroom. The class can't see the young person, but the member of staff can see when the young person at home wants a question, lights up to say, I'm enjoying this or I want to participate. And so they technically are actively involved, which is amazing. I've only worked with a few so far of those, but they were successful. And often the idea there is to, again, kind of bridge the gap for a period of time. Then it might be that the young person decides to bring the robot into school, be in school with them. And maybe that's the library to begin with, and then be in school with the robot into a lesson, so on.
So loads of things are going back to that idea of graded exposure. Loads of things are small steps, step by step, aren't they? I can hear that in a lot of the things you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because if you're at home and you just feel like going to school is impossible, it feels like a mountain, doesn't it? And so much of it sounds like the things that you see that work are breaking it down into small steps. We're doing this today. Don't worry about the rest of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about being realistic, isn't it? And if someone, asks you to run a marathon and you're not a runner, then it's going to be difficult. If you start with, say, an app that builds you up to slowly do one, then you're going to feel more confident. So it's just about that gradual, let's try this first, see how that goes. It takes that pressure off, is the idea that you can actually achieve something small and then go a little bit further, and it feels better because you're hopefully feeling more in control than actually doing the whole thing at once. But the robots it's amazing, isn't it? That's something that we just never would have seen before. And I think sometimes it's still quite new, so that can feel a little bit uncertain for schools, but actually the teams that run the robots are really, experienced of dealing with them. And I know some schools do manage their robots really well. So, yeah.
But it's a good example because, lots of schools, for example, will have the children who are at home in the lesson on a Teams call on a laptop, much less high tech, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's what we did during COVID, isn't it? People were joining on Google Classroom and those kind of things as well. So
there's a lot of opportunity there, isn't there, for that connection?
Yeah. Charlotte, what are the reasons why a child would not want to attend school? Controversial question. So what is it? Do you see what, like, I suppose I'm thinking about this idea of kind of anxiety in relation to school. And you've talked about a few things already, I think, that might be those kind of barriers and create that anxiety. If you could pick out, say, one or two key themes that you hear most around why school creates anxiety for a child, what would they be?
Oh, big question. I think I'd definitely go with sense of belonging. I think the young person wouldn't say that, but what they're describing
is what we would call.
Is
that goes back to I feel lonely, no one gets me. Those things you're saying earlier.
Exactly. Okay. All of those things are a lack of belonging. And so that for me is a big one. One that's really high up there, which is, again, quite controversial, but interesting because you just think it could fix so many things possibly, is uniform.
Right.
And so driving here today, I saw that lots of school children had come out and they all had their shirts and ties. It's a really warm day today, which we don't get to say often in England. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of young people do find the shirt, the tie, the blazer all day quiet. For those that maybe have additional needs, quite physically, just a real strain, actually. And I don't know maybe how that can feel all day if something, actually causes you.
Kind of physical distress.
Yeah.
Do you know, as well, 80% of the world's population of school children don't wear uniform.
Mm-hmm.
We're obsessed with it, aren't we, in this country?
We are.
We are obsessed with it. And actually, in my work as a psychologist, an educational psychologist, it does come up a lot, doesn't it, Orla? This idea of sensory experience of wearing a school uniform.
Young people tell us that a lot.
Yeah, they do.
And I guess that's our challenge, isn't it? To really listen to what our children are telling us.
Yeah.
And really have a think about how we can support. Where's reasonable adjustments for children with additional needs? And there's something about a pick your battles type approach, isn't there?
Oh, definitely.
There's huge flexibility in, schools and parents who are doing it well, finding the middle ground, finding different things in the uniform.
Yeah.
If you think about what is the uniform for and what it helps with, make sure you're maintaining that, but still making people feel included. I think there's lots of opportunities, isn't there?
Yeah, I think we've gone blazer mad, I have to say. Blazer mad in this country. I mean, if you can go to the Square Mile and walk around and people are in chinos and polo shirts, aren't they? So
it's interesting, isn't it? It's such I could talk about it all day because it is, coming from being in schools and understanding how difficult it can be when you let one or two have that reasonable adjustment, and that is the right thing for them. But then sometimes the backlash, if we call it that, of maybe people not understanding why that reasonable adjustment's been made. And of course, it's not for us to say, well, that child needs, that's not. So it is a really difficult one. But I think maybe if schools generally had the ability to be, more flexible on a whole, if we're talking kind of across the whole country, maybe that would make it feel better. And we don't know until someone tries it. So
someone very brave.
Yes,
that is a challenge. That is a challenge officially set. Polo shirts and trackers. # just saying. Charlotte, moving on. I'm surprised that you didn't say bullying. So I'm surprised that hasn't, we've not talked about that today, have we? And I don't know how often that comes up, but it's interesting when we're talking about mental health and attendance that doesn't come up more, I guess.
I think more than the word bullying, I personally hear social media, definitely.
Okay.
And so that's interesting though, because a lot of the time something happens maybe on social media that in our world is a type of bullying, but the young person would see it as maybe, well, that's happened on social media. Again, it's that change of the times, not to make us sound old, but it is, we'd often see that in school, we couldn't put our finger on anything. And actually, that doesn't mean something wasn't happening or that it wasn't a type of bullying. But so much happens now in the online world, so much, that often creates that sense of isolation. But it's not actually happened within school. It's happened online. Does that make
And
sense?
it always comes into school, doesn't it? The lines are blurred, aren't they?
And so often, because of maybe an event online, then the young person won't want to come in. And so again, you could use the word bullying maybe, but it might be a one-off incident. Isn't, typically what we'd call it bullying. But it can be really difficult to sort those things out from any point, kind of from school's point, police point. It's difficult. And so that can often be a huge barrier.
I think for some children as well, if they get to the point of not being able to attend, or they get to the point of being so worried every day about school that they're talking about it, if you said to them, what's caused this? They don't know, because there's sometimes something happens and then there's a snowball. And so I think sometimes parents and school adults can get caught in that. What is it? What is it? We need to figure it out. We need to get to the bottom of it. But they don't know. And I've certainly worked with some young people where it's not been till a year, 2 years down the line that they've done all this work and they've got back to a good place where they can say, I do think this started on that day when this thing happened at school, or I do think this happened when I had, when that person close to me died, or I do think it was when I fell out. But actually the snowball effect, it's more just like a feeling, isn't it? Yeah. And kids have talked about it as like, it's just a feeling, it's a heaviness, it's a weight on my shoulders. I just can't do it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Do you know, you just made me think, actually, I was actually speaking to a parent a couple of weeks ago, and it was a child, I can't remember how old they were, but the mum recalled a significant incident when the child first started in the school in reception, and he was told off for not having a book bag, which to this very little person, Charlotte's, you can't see her face, but she's doing her sad face. It is though, isn't it?
Whole thing, yeah.
And that, I bet when she says told off, I can just imagine that conversation, someone saying, have you got your book bag? Oh, where is it? Oh, okay, you've forgotten it. Remember to bring it tomorrow. Do you know? And like to the teacher or to the assistant or whoever has said that, they probably would never have imagined that would then be so deeply embedded in that child's kind of internal world that they're then creating this sense of, I'm scared or I don't belong here, or kind of all those things that you said. And that's not to say that teacher won't do that again, or any teacher would, but I guess you're right. It's about thinking about that individual and what the trigger point is or was.
And the thing you were saying about the connection, that is a feeling when you feel connected and you feel valued, isn't it? And so no matter what, you might never get to the bottom of it to find out that it was the book bag. But if you do those things you're talking about they feel important, they feel like someone cares about them, they feel listened to, they'll feel that, in their chest, that on their face, they'll smile and they'll feel like, warm and connected. And that will be the thing that opens up the opportunity to say, I'll give it a go. Yeah, I'll try this lesson.
Definitely. And I think that's ongoing. We used to talk a lot about connection before correction.
Yeah.
And so it's that kind of, we know that sometimes young people will need to be asked about the book bag or, but because there's that connection, hopefully anyway, the time that you need to speak to them about the thing that's going wrong or they're not doing doesn't feel as bad, because they can know that you've connected with them so many times that actually the correction I use as a, word to, is okay, because it's not, you just over them. And I think it is hard. There's so many rules and things that we need to follow. But actually, sometimes a young person can go through a school day and it can be, why are you late? Where's your tie? Have you got this?
Yeah.
That? How many times it's flipping that, isn't it? And trying to be, how's your evening? How are you feeling today? Do you have breakfast? Trying to create connection
the whole day through
as much as possible, and it is a challenge.
I love that.
Yeah. Looking for that
as much as you can.
I love that. I think it's so simple. It's so right. I'm thinking about my own experience of school. But then also my daughter's, there are so many points at which she is corrected throughout a day, and it's often, you're right, because of little things, uniform, stop talking, stop shouting out. Actually, the language that's used as part of that is really important, isn't it? Because actually you just twist that statement round a little bit and you create connection. Do you know, like, because every moment that you have an encounter with a young person is an opportunity.
Yeah,
and it really is.
Karen Treisman, have you heard of her? She does a clinical psychologist.
Yeah.
And every interaction is an opportunity for an intervention.
Yeah.
And that's it, isn't it?
I've heard that. That's it. And I think if you track a young person throughout the day, it'd be interesting just to think, you know, how many as the adult times did I be that positive, you know, connection, or was it the negative?
Yes.
And it's like us as adults, if we go to work and every interaction is, I need this, can you do that? Odd, isn't it? Whereas if you feel like what you did was really good, or that's going well, or it makes a difference. We're human. And so having that positive spin is so much nicer. It is hard though. It's, you know, really I'm saying hard. This, I'm not pretending it's easy, but trying to have that positive kind of outlook and approach, it makes such a difference. And I think if all of the adults at school are trying, not saying they'll get it right every time because we're human, but really trying to have that and build that culture, it makes such a difference. And I think, you know, again, that the size of schools can impact that, and being that community, if staff feel supported and so on, it all has an impact on that.
But you know, a lot of this is really helpful for people early on when it's starting, but some children get into a situation where they haven't been in school for a year, maybe more than a year. Yeah. Parents, it can be really hard for the whole family, can't it? Can start to affect parents' jobs, the other children. And I really wondered, what have you seen has worked for those children and those families? Because I think in our work, there's some of the parents, aren't they, who say, how is this going to get better? And there's some of the children who say, you know, I just can't do it. What have you seen, and where's the hope from your work?
I was going to say, our team have been doing that.
And what do they do?
Yeah, they will be given a family, a young person, and really think about kind of who the right person is, the practitioner that's going to make the most difference to that family based on their experience and so on. And they will really expect to go with that approach of being supportive, of listening, of wanting to connect and build a relationship first and foremost. And so we often talk about conversations through a bedroom door. And that often maybe the first couple of sessions are literally that. We also talk about the consistency, you know, just turning up. Even if you're not going to get to see the young person, they will still keep going. So again, that consistency of, I'm showing up for you, I'm showing up for you, you know, and that in itself can give such a strong message to a young person that's been struggling. They've not been forgotten. We're not leaving this. We're going to be persistent. So they will go make that connection over time often, and then really start again the things we've spoken about, to listen to that young person, to see if possible what it is that's caused the not wanting to go into school or not wanting to leave the house. Again, it can be different things. Really trying to identify that and look at really small steps again of how to build confidence, address the mental health, and then look at education in whatever way that might be.
Yeah, I would say as well, I think sometimes when it's that kind of far ingrained, like in young, you know, there are some kids that can't come out of the bedroom, aren't there? That's really tough, isn't it? To imagine being that age and feeling so low that you don't even want to come out of your bedroom. And I think as a parent, that must be A, so scary, but also B, where do you go to for help with that? Because most mental health services are community-based, so you'd have to get them out of the bedroom. And just by nature, this is what's a great thing, isn't it, about your team, Charlotte, is that they do that work in the, you know, in the home environment, which is great. But I also do think that one of the things that sometimes you have to do is take school off the table. You know, school is the kind of trigger factor. And I'm not talking about education being off the table. I'm talking about school being off the table.
And not the connections either. Not the people at school, the connections from the friends, the key people.
Yeah. So for the anxiety to be reduced, those things have to be removed from the situation. And I think it sounds dire, doesn't it? And it sounds quite extreme, but in an extreme case and circumstance, I think sometimes we have to think outside the box in terms of education. Yeah. You know, education is this huge wide lens, and sometimes school can be quite narrow in terms of what it offers. And I think accepting that as a parent your child must be so challenging to think that they're not going to go through this normal, in inverted commas, green or line or track of what you imagine they should be doing because we're told they should be going to school, etc. And I think it's okay if you're in that situation to accept that actually education is lifelong and it's bigger than what you're experiencing right now, and be okay with that.
And when you open that up, that creativity, it relieves the pressure from everyone.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And then it creates the space for creative ideas, building it back up, starting with the things that you enjoy, that you are good at, working towards the things that are hard.
Definitely. Yeah.
I think it'd be nice to think that, you know, as time goes on, that will become more normalised. It's not at the minute, unfortunately. It is a really difficult situation, like you say, and for some families it is their reality, and we see that with the cases that we support, you know, and they're amazing young people, amazing resilient parents, because it can be so hard because it isn't as normal in society, if I use that word. It's not kind of your typical case, and so I think definitely considering, like say, thinking outside the box, looking at what works for that young person, being more personal, that actually the huge building and the thousands of children, hundreds, isn't for you, is okay. And so, like you say, education for you might look different, and that's all right as well. But we've got so much work to do around that to make sure people know that that is okay, and that support is there for them as well, even though it can feel as a parent really hard to find. It is there, and that's where I think, you know, raising awareness still with schools as well about our team, and so that they're not feeling kind of isolated in that there is something for everyone, is just as working out what that is, what's going to work.
I think schools can take that on board too.
Oh yeah.
I think we see some of our schools thinking about education in its broadest sense, don't we?
Yeah.
You know, creating different types of learning environments in the school building, different spaces, different places for different people.
Yeah.
And when it works really well, you can have a child who can access different bits and pieces, but still have the connections of the staff, the teachers, and even the friends sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, talking about the AV1 robots, that it all shows, doesn't it, that we're moving with this, and that actually there's a need for it. And so that shows that there is a lot of young people in this situation, and we don't want anyone to be missed. They need to be able to still be supported. And I think what's key is that their mental health is addressed first. Yes, education's important, and of course it is, and, you know, great, but actually your young person's well-being, health, you know, is key. That is the most important thing.
You've got to be ready to learn, don't you?
Absolutely. We talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and, you know, how do you learn if actually you've not got the basic feeling of, you know, the basic things that you need first.
You know, it's, I mean, again, something that we talk about a lot, but comes back to, suppose, as well, the idea of inclusion for everybody, doesn't it? And I think we can probably end on a kind of a thought and a comment around how we imagine education for the future. You know, why are we in a situation where we have double the amount of children who are what we would deem to be persistently absent, whether you agree with that statement or not? Why would a child not want to attend school? Why would school be a key contributing factor in a child's deteriorating mental health? And I think these questions are big, and I think they're things that need to be considered from a wider lens and perspective. Schools are doing a great job with what they have.
Absolutely.
As our parents.
Yeah.
But, you know, something's got to change, because it's not working right now. For a lot of children, it's not working. Charlotte, thank you so much.
We have a question, don't we, that we want to ask all our guests to finish up. We want to know, what do you do in your life to help you to remember that you're not alone?
Ooh.
She's on the spot.
Give me a minute.
She's on the spot. Voice has gone croaky. Oh, that's because she's poorly.
Pressure. I think for me it is connecting. So again, something that we've spoken a lot about, but whether that be meeting my sister for a walk and a moan, whether it's spending time with my family, my husband and children, you know, however that is, it's connecting to remind myself I'm not alone. Or sometimes it is just going for a run and having time alone, but to help me to process. Yeah, and that's it. And kind of have that space. I love fresh air first thing in the morning, you know, where it just feels like, right, what does the day have ahead, sort of thing. So yeah, I think for me, I love talking. So happy to be your guest today.
Thank you so much.
Talking to someone as well.
Yeah, it's been great. I think it's really, it's been really insightful, Charlotte, thinking about ways to help. Definitely. And if you're a parent out there listening, I think hopefully that's been a helpful conversation to kind of listen in on. I know it's certainly left me thinking and you know, wondering about if I'm getting it right.
I think above all, it's okay to not have all the answers.
Yeah.
You know, we don't. None of us do. Whether we're professionals, whether we're a parent, whatever it is, talking is important, isn't it? To work it out together. I think when you've got a couple of you work it out and you get a plan, and that makes the difference, so that you're not alone in it.
You're not alone, guys. There it is, the message. Thank you for listening today. We will see you next time.
We discussed some heavy subjects today, so remember that you can find advice and links to support services on NottAlone.org.uk. You are not alone.